At 11:42 p.m., the final lock clicked into place. The sound was routine, a familiar confirmation that the outside world had been shut out. One by one, each entry point had been secured. The front door reinforced with deadbolt, the back door checked twice, windows sealed, curtains drawn. Inside, the lights dimmed and the house settled into silence. Everything appeared controlled and accounted for. What could not be seen in that moment was that the threat was not outside attempting to enter. It was already inside, waiting. There were no alarms, no broken glass, no signs of forced entry. Yet by morning, the certainty of safety would collapse into a single question. If no one came in, how were they already there? He was a methodical man, 38 years old, living alone in a quiet neighborhood where routine blended into normalcy. His work and logistics demanded precision, and that same discipline shaped his daily life. Locking up at night was not casual. It was deliberate. Neighbors later described a consistent pattern. Windows checked, blinds adjusted, lights turned off in sequence. The house itself was modest, a single-story structure with a detached garage and two main entrances. Security measures were intact. Reinforced locks, functional window latches, motion sensor lights, and a basic alarm system, though not always activated overnight. There were no obvious vulnerabilities. The weakness, investigators would later determine, was not in the hardware, but in timing. The night appeared uneventful. Records showed he returned home at 9:15 p.m., made a brief call, and turned on his television. By 11:30 p.m., lights began shutting off in their usual order. At 11:42 p.m., the final lock was secured. After that moment, there were no signs of entry. No door opened, no window shifted, no alarm was triggered. Nothing entered the house, yet something was already there. The following day began with concern. When he failed to report to work and stopped responding to calls, a welfare check was requested. Officers arrived that evening. From the outside, the property appeared undisturbed. The front door was locked, with no signs of damage. Entry was forced. Inside, the scene initially appeared orderly, but subtle inconsistencies began to surface. Minor details, a chair slightly misaligned, a cabinet not fully closed, suggested something was off. The space did not fully reflect the controlled routine he was known for. Investigators focused first on entry points. Every door and window was examined. All were locked from the inside, intact, and showed no signs of tampering. The alarm system logs showed no activity. Less obvious access points, including vents and crawl spaces, were also clear. The conclusion became unavoidable. Whoever was responsible had not entered after the house was secured. They had already been inside. Attention shifted to the timeline. Surveillance footage confirmed his arrival home, with no indication of anyone following him. Inside the house, forensic analysis revealed fingerprints that did not belong to the occupant. While not unusual on its own, their placement was significant. Some were found near storage areas and secondary access points, locations not typically used by guests. These details suggested prior presence, not recent intrusion. The investigation expanded beyond that night. Delivery and maintenance records were reviewed without immediate results. The breakthrough came when investigators re-examined the detached garage. Initially overlooked, it had been found locked and undisturbed. However, closer inspection revealed a subtle inconsistency. A secondary door connected the garage to a small storage room attached to the house. This door showed signs of internal manipulation. It had not been forced, but appeared to have been opened and resecured from within. This detail changed everything. It suggested that someone had accessed the garage earlier, before the evening routine, and remained inside undetected. Unlike the main house, the garage was not checked with the same rigor. It was assumed to be secure. That assumption created an opening. Investigators reconstructed the sequence. The suspect entered the garage hours before the victim returned home. They concealed themselves within the storage space, avoiding detection as the victim moved through his routine. They remained hidden as lights were turned off and doors were locked. By the time the final lock clicked into place, the house was already compromised. Fingerprint analysis identified the suspect as someone who had prior access to the home. This was not random. It was calculated. The individual was familiar with the layout, aware of routines, and knew which areas were less likely to be checked. The locks did not fail. They reinforced a false sense of security. The critical realization was simple but chilling. The crime did not begin after the house was secured. It began before, during a period that had not initially been considered part of the event. Entry had already been achieved, and concealment had already been established. The suspect was eventually identified and taken into custody. Evidence confirmed their presence and connection to the scene. The case was built not on forced entry or visible struggle, but on timing, access, and familiarity. In the aftermath, the house itself remained unchanged, but the perception of safety did not. This case revealed a fundamental flaw in how security is understood. Locks and alarms are designed to keep threats out, but they do not account for what may already be inside. The absence of forced entry does not guarantee safety. Sometimes, the most critical breach occurs before protection is even engaged. The most important moment was not the discovery of evidence, but the final act of locking the doors. It marked the point at which safety was assumed, even though the threat had already bypassed every barrier. The doors were locked, but the truth was already inside.